That was awesome. That was just awesome. And it makes me want to start this talk by saying maybe we can turn that into a circus of happiness. Because that's the title of my talk, Happiness Now. We're really enjoying this book, Authentic Happiness, in the bookstore. The first 100 pages are about positive emotions. The next 50 pages are on strengths and virtues. And the following 50 pages are how to apply this in your life. So if you need a little step up in happiness, you might want to check that out. So happiness now. I know I can demand happiness of myself. I know I can create it myself, no matter what I'm doing. But sometimes we create happiness without even thinking about it. We just experience it. But there's also creating happiness for other people, which you did so beautifully, Holly, this morning. What Holly did makes us smile. We felt invigorated. We felt one with her words. And so happiness is also reciprocal. It's a giving and receiving. The author describes happiness in the present moment as very different from happiness in the past or the future. Creating happiness now can be done in two ways, through pleasure or through gratification. So pleasure, happiness, delightful things, they have a sensory element to them. You don't think about it. You walk in Safeway and you smell the flowers. That's some real personal, non-thinking happiness. It just makes you smile. When you meet friends and each of you smiles and gives a hug, you don't think too much about it, you just do. And so that's the pleasure, the simple pleasure of happiness. But gratification, on the other hand, it takes some thinking. Gratification about what we like doing. It's not necessarily an instant raw feeling that we feel. It's something that we're doing that gives us that sense of gratification. We're so immersed in it. We're so absorbed by it. My recent experience of gratification at the crisis center where I volunteer is helping someone who is in crisis connect with their spouse that they had not seen for a week or two. Very simple thing that I helped give them a card that they could write to their spouse and let them know where they were and what was happening. And it just lit that person up. This person was so worried. And so it was a very simple thing to give a card, but I felt gratitude for doing that, gratitude that I listened to the person, and then I had the right and perfect card to give him to mail. So gratification tends to last longer. It gives us a level of happiness that tends to last a little longer, and it doesn't require a lot of thinking, but it involves thinking. What would be the right card? What would be the right time? What would be the right thing to say? Our bodily pleasures of happiness come from our five senses, smell, touch, taste, see, and what we hear. And I don't know about you, but when I smell freshly baked bread, I start salivating. I mean, I can't help it. At home, when Paul bakes bread, he adds all kinds of nuts and things to it. And oh my gosh, you just want to eat the whole thing right then and there. But it reminded me of a day that he and I were sitting in the San Francisco airport for hours, may have had that experience, and a group of military personnel came in and sat nearby us in their uniforms. And I looked over and I said, "Oh, where are you going to or coming from?" And the gal in the group said, "We're returning from Afghanistan." And I said, "Oh, please tell me, what are you going to miss most about Afghanistan?" She said, "The bread." And all the guys went, "Yep, the bread." Now, I'm going to have to Google that because I don't know what they do to that bread, but to have a whole platoon say, "the bread," is what they would miss about Afghanistan really impressed me. And so after a while, I went all over to the shop and I bought them all Hershey's candy bars. That's our American way, Hershey's. And they thought that was pretty cool. But then there are higher pleasures that we can give ourselves, such as sitting in front of a fireplace, reading a book, wrapped in a warm blanket. You can be amused by your animals, your cats or dogs, watching them play, or just relaxing on a deck and watching the clouds go by. Those are simple pleasures. They're higher level pleasures that we give ourselves instead of a candy bar. And then there are moderate pleasures. That comes from feeling enthusiastic about something. Now, if you were here last Sunday, Reverend Sue had her smartphone, and she said, look at my grandson, and he's going, ee, ee, ah, ah, and we just all cracked up. And she's like, oh, isn't he great? Yes, he is. He's cute as can be. And we just all enjoyed that pleasure. That was a little level higher pleasure. But then there's high-intensity pleasures. And when I thought, what's a high-intensity pleasure that I can imagine? I can imagine Sue holding that baby and going, ee, ah, and just corresponding, talking with this baby. And I know that's a high-intensity pleasure. I had my first writing class this week, and some of the students were doing some beautiful writing and just some oohs and ahs about, wow, I never thought of that before. And you could just feel little ideas of miracles coming up in them that they missed, maybe didn't see them happening, but in the writing it came through. That's my high-intensity pleasure, giving a class to people who are really into philosophy and writing and just learning more about who they are. That's my passion. So I know how to turn my happiness level on. Of course, we all know how to turn them off, but I'd rather think about turning them on. And when I get home, our cats are standing there waiting for me, and then they run and they jump and they play because I'm going to give them a treat. So then I get really excited when I see them sitting on the windowsill and they're looking outside and their tail goes whap, 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 and they see something. If they could only get it and eat it, they would be thrilled. They would be in happiness heaven for a cat. So every day there's a way to enjoy happiness. And I, of course, when I get home and Paul and I play cards, I'm very happy when I win big time. Of course, he is too when he wins big time, but he's also the chef in the family, and when he cooks a lovely meal, I'm really full of gratitude for that. And he's happy. It's a great giving and receiving. But the author of this book cautions us and says, too many little pleasures limit our ability to feel lasting happiness because they come and go, come and go, come and go. For instance, every once in a while we'll go to a movie theater to see a movie, really good movie, and by the time we get home and open the garage door, it's like, okay, what's next? But when we go see a spectacular movie, we'll probably talk about it all evening, talk about it with friends, maybe even recollect what we saw. The person who I think is the movie guru in the world is Lori in The Office. She loves every Avenger movie that's ever been made, and she can talk about it for a long time. Who are the characters, what they were doing, did the last Avenger movie fit with this Avenger movie? And she's really into it. She just loves it, gives her a lot of happiness. But my favorite probably is Star Wars, because I love little Yoda. And he's always with me. I have him on my desk in the office, and I have him on my desk at home. Because one of his famous lines was, no, try not, do or do not. There is no try. And I look at his ears and I go, okay, I was just gonna do something and kind of adequately do it. And he's going, no, do it or do not. And so he's my little angel that reminds me, it's time to do what I'm doing well, not just getting by. We like a number of TV shows. I could roll them off to you and you'd probably go, yep, like that one, like that one. But it's funny, we go to the TV after playing cards, we see what's on, and we go, did we see that already? Might have only been yesterday. Do you remember what? And we say, oh heck, let's look at it anyway. And then we go, oh yeah, we saw that 3 times. Okay, pick something. Do you do that? It's funny, that's that little pleasure that does not have lasting memory. Otherwise I would know, yeah, we saw that. We saw that a year ago. But no, it's these little pleasures. It's so funny. Another pleasure that I have is vanilla ice cream. That rich vanilla flavor. Oh my gosh. The first taste, you don't want to swallow it. It's just so good. By the 5th taste, it's like, okay, I'm almost done. Where did that go? Where did it go? It's so interesting. The researchers call this adaptation. There's neurons in our brain that are always perked up when something new happens or something weird. And when our brain adapts to vanilla ice cream, like after 4 tastes of vanilla ice cream, it just puts that feeling in with the rest of the feelings that were happening. So the trick is to recognize that sometimes we give ourselves too many pleasures and they don't become really wonderful. It's just, yeah, okay, did that. And they say if you do those things less frequently, you get even more pleasure out of it. So ice cream once a week, for me. Surprise is another way of feeling pleasure. Surprise your friend or your spouse with a hug, maybe a little trinket or something sweet. Reciprocal feelings of pleasure are contagious, and it's a way to slow down. At home, we don't give hi, hug, we give breathe hugs. It's a really beautiful way to slow down because our world, especially for me, I'm on the computer all day long, is going faster and faster and faster. And when I can slow down, it just brings me to the present moment. So my mantra is a day without a hug is not acceptable. So you may accept that for yourself. Another aspect of pleasure is savoring. Savoring. There's a study done at Loyola University by a couple on savoring, because they describe savoring as the awareness of pleasure and a deliberate, conscious attention to the experience of the pleasure. They had an experience that got them on this track of talking to thousands of people about what savoring experiences are for them. They got out their old love letters that they wrote to each other when they were dating, and they started reading them, and they kept slowing down and savoring every word. And one of the couple said, we just let the words roll slowly over us, just like a warm, soft shower. Ooh, it must have been a juicy letter. So they led thousands of undergraduates through the system of finding out what experiences of happiness or pleasure are savoring experiences. And they found 5 techniques. I'm not going to tell you all of them, they're in the book. But the first one is sharing experiences with others, like the groups, the people that go on SOAR groups, these outdoor experience, hiking, wildflower watching, all the different things the SOAR group does. Then you come, it's one thing, but when you come back and you see a person the next day and you go, wasn't that fun? Did you see that one flower? Wasn't that fun when so-and-so did this? And you're creating memories that you savor, A second way of savoring is memory building. Taking photographs, purchasing souvenirs. I'm really good at that. Every time we go on vacation, every little community or city we go to, I buy a book about it because I know I'm going to go home and read them. At least I buy them. And while I was working on this talk, I looked up at the calendar on my wall, and it's from Niagara Falls. Last year, we went on a cruise through the 5 Great Lakes and stopped at Niagara Falls. And I bought a book, I bought a calendar, I bought a little magnet, because it's such a spectacular experience. So I was looking at that picture, and I could remember putting on this little plastic bag kind of thing and going under the falls and getting soaking wet in the face and pants and shoes, and everybody was laughing and having such a wonderful time. That's savoring a memory. It's just a wonderful thing to do. Gratification is a frequent feeling I experience when I volunteer at the Crisis Center as chaplain. When I'm able to provide shoes to some homeless person that comes into the center who has barely shoes on their feet, and they are so grateful. Gratification. But my gratification is to you, because you're the ones that bring in the shoes. So while this person's just thrilled they have a pair of shoes that not only fit but are the right size, I'm grateful to you. And so just know that. Those little gifts are just so powerful. In the book, the author tells a story of his childhood in Hungary after World War II. Many of the people he knew collapsed into helplessness and despondence. They were without jobs, without money. They were walking around like empty shells of a human being. But at the same time, there were other people who radiated integrity. They had good cheer. They had purpose in the midst of all the rubble. When he grew up, he spent his whole adult life studying psychology. How could this be? Some are helpless, despondent. Some are radiating hope and commitment. How can that be? What he contributed to the field of psychology was a word he calls flow, just flow, F-L-O-Y, F-L-O-W. Oh, well. When we're so engaged that we're in the flow and we don't want to stop. And I know you've had those experiences. You just don't want to stop. You're doing exactly what you want at that moment you want to do it, and it can just go on. You're in the flow. You know, you can find that if you're in watercolor painting. You get really involved in your painting, or maybe you're playing golf and you wish it was 24 holes or 100 holes before you had to stop, or hiking, pulling weeds. There's a lot of ways to get in the flow. And it's a state of enjoyment, pure enjoyment. So levels of gratification can be social or physical. We have deep, effortless involvement with something where times seems to just stop. We're just in the moment. We're in the flow. Here in the center, we can get in the flow doing seva, selfless service to God. When you're doing landscaping, you know, trimming the roses, mowing the yard, pulling weeds, you're just in that state of flow and of gratitude, deep gratitude. So for the people he observed in Hungary when he was growing up, they were in the flow, the ones that had commitment. They were in the flow of rebuilding not only their lives, but they were rebuilding their community. And they were doing it together. And they had an exceptional level of happiness by doing that. Now, you may not know, but over the last 40 years, every country of any country of any wealth, more people have been depressed than ever before. Depression is now 10 times more prevalent than it was in 1960. In 1960, the mean age of a person's first level of depression was 29.5 years of age. Today, it's only 14.5 years of age. And one theory is that society has built a system of unwarranted self-esteem that they can't seem to live up to. So it's depressing. Society focuses on victimology. Everybody's a victim of something. That's depressing. And also an over-reliance on shortcuts to happiness. A shortcut to happiness today can include taking drugs to get your mind off the world, watching too much television, shopping for things you don't need, loveless sex, spectator sports where we're just mind numb. And here's the last one, chocolate. It's a shortcut to happiness, just like vanilla ice cream, chocolate. You know, I wouldn't think, and another one he mentions that I would not have thought of. He said, a shortcut to happiness is eating a meal that we don't prepare. You pull it out of the freezer, open the box, stick it in the microwave, and you eat it. There's no sensory happiness. Buying a salad in an envelope, pouring dressing on it, it's not the same. It's a shortcut to happiness because you've had a meal, but you know the aromas and the feeling when you're actually cutting vegetables, when you're cooking them, when you're seasoning them. That's a level of happiness. So think about that, because I was really surprised when he said that. Another symptom of depression is self-absorption, excessive focus on how we feel. And one antidote to that is gratifications, exercising our personal strength to make others happy. So if we're self-absorbed, it means give. It means join a Save a team. It means help others. 2,500 years ago, Aristotle asked this question: what is the good life? It's the identification and use of our signature strengths to experience more gratification in life. That's what makes up a good life. And I bet you didn't expect that. Identification and use of our signature strengths to experience more gratification in life. It leads to a full life, giving to others, helping others. So I was going through my library of books trying to find more stuff on happiness, and I came across Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, and it's in the last chapter, if you have the book. He addresses a time as we get older, like over the age of 60, a few of us are there, and he says that's a time when we enter the return movement home, our return movement home. We're less focused on the outer, and we become more focused on the inner. We become more awake about what we're doing, and if we're enjoying what we're doing, we become a little more choosy, and that's good. What's good for us? And so I think what most of us are looking for here in this philosophy is how to make that happen in a more conscious way. We're not giving up on our return, because we know it's not a dead end. There's always more on the other side. But when we are awake with what we're doing, we have a vibrational level that is very close to the creation level of vibration in the universe. And he says this vibrational tendency is made in 3 ways: acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. We accept what we're doing. We accept it. We're at peace because we've accepted it in whatever we're doing. It's almost like a level of surrender, which I do when I'm pulling weeds. Okay, oh, this was an easy one to pull. Oh, where did that come from? Oh, I'm almost done. Wow. So this acceptance of what I'm doing, I'm at peace with it, I've surrendered to it, and there's good things that come from that result. Now, enjoyment, if I'm doing something that I'm enjoying, all of a sudden I find myself beginning to flow in the level of joy. It is more sustained. It bypasses any sense of need or want. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing. It's selfless service to God. And then enthusiasm. With true enthusiasm, we have enormous intensity and energy about what we're doing. It has a very high frequency rate, and it resonates with the creative power of the universe, which is why Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm." Enthusiasm. So if there's something you have to do, how might you get more enthusiastic about it, about what the results might be? And you're going to find a power coming in through you that you didn't feel earlier. So in creating happiness now, I invite you to think about those 3 things: accepting what you're doing, enjoying what you're doing, and being enthusiastic for what you're doing, and savor those moments. Just savor them. Create fun-filled memories. Inspire others. All of this contributes to what is called a genuinely happy life. So let's do a prayer on that. Because in this moment, I am genuinely happy. Happy that not only could I share this, but that many of you felt it and now have a new idea what it means to bring happiness into your life, to the life of your family, your friends, your coworkers, the person sitting across the room from you. It's a smile, it's a sense of peace that we can call upon anytime we want. With Holly's song that was so beautifully created, I see the circus in the world, and I am responsible for my feelings. I offer love and happiness to those I meet who are having such difficult times. I send prayers of love and happiness across the globe. we make ourselves uplifted with happiness, we are able to give it, to share it, to make the whole world a happier place. So thanks to people like Holly and all those who look beyond what's happening and know the truth. It's all one. We're finding our ways to learn to live with each other, care for each other, and love for each other. And when we do it with a spirit of happiness, it is golden. It is a true gift we give the world. I'm so grateful to know more, to be more, and act in more ways like that, to share the goodness in the world, knowing it's there for all to see and use and be. For that, I'm so grateful. And so it is. Thank you.